Hey fam, what's going on? Strat here from Strategic Audio, back again with another brand new music production video, and today we're going to be going through 5 important steps to making a soulful beat for an artist like J. Cole, or maybe even J.I.D., Kendrick, artists who have that particular energy and vibe and style of being able to flow and make songs on stuff that is soulful, not necessarily just the trappy and the more electronic kind of vibe, but that more organic kind of vibe. Once again, 5 important steps for making a beat or a sample that's soulful and might fit an artist like J. Cole. Now, if you're interested in this kind of content, please drop the video a like and consider subscribing so that you would get all of the videos like this that we do on the channel. It also supports the channel and helps us out a lot here at strategicaudiokits.com, where you can click the first link down below and go straight there and perhaps get one of our free or premium loop kits and samples. Great for providing inspiration and helping you to maybe finish your projects quicker, faster, more effectively. Alright, so this is just going to be me going through a production that I made, a composition that I made, and I'm going to be going through it to show you these 5 steps. Now, the first of those steps is to decide what key you're going to be in, so that will allow you to figure out what chord progression you're going to make. And in the realm of these soulful, kind of soul sample-ish compositions that draw inspiration from sounds of the 60s, 70s, and maybe even a little bit of neo soul, there are certain types of chord progressions with certain cadences and certain voicings, usually with a lot of 7th and 9th notes perhaps, that you're going to want to use. So the first step is all about choosing the key that you're comfortable playing in, and then building a chord progression that fits the overarching style or energy that you want. Remember, again, we're making something soulful, something that you might have heard on one of those earlier J. Cole albums, or maybe one of the earlier Kendrick Lamar albums. You'd also hear this style on a lot of more old school 90s, early 2000s hip hop. Alright, so to illustrate this, I'm going to show you what I did for this particular composition. And here I just want to illustrate to you the exact chords that were used. Right, so moving on to the next step, and the next step is, in my mind, based on what I like to do, is to come up with either a counter melody or a complementary melody that accompanies and rounds out, or maybe adds an element that will really fit with the main chord progression. For that, I use my old electric guitar to play like a nice live guitar melody, a simple guitar riff, and it went like this. Counter melodies or accompanying melodies tend to be very important when it comes to adding a top line maybe, or adding an element that blends well with your main chord progression to give the overall composition a bit more depth and add something dynamic that blends well again with the main chord progression. Step number 3 in this journey is the bass line. Now, you can be very, very simple and just follow the root notes of the main chord progression and make a really simple, almost boring bass line. But what I did was I started with that concept, with the idea of following the root notes of the main chord progression. But I wanted the bass line to have a life of its own, almost like a melody of its own. So it's hard to describe, so I'm just gonna show you what I did. So as you heard, that bass does not simply just follow the root notes of the main chord progression. What it does is it stays in alignment with the actual chord movements, but it sparsely has its own melodic character. So those are the first 3 steps. Step number 4 is a bit broader and I want to call this adding more layers for depth and adding ear candy. In this case, I added an organ which essentially played the main chords but not in the same timing. I added strings which did not necessarily follow the main chords in the way you might think. It created a harmony, and I added some vocal chops just as an ear candy accent. The final step, step number 5 in a production like this, if you wanted to go this route, is to add drums. In some cases, if you're a sample maker or a loop maker, you might not want to add the drums. You might just want to keep the melodies and maybe add some more ear candy sound effects and that type of thing to fill it out, and just have it as a sample that you can send to another producer. In my case, even though I am also a sample maker primarily, I wanted to add drums because I love making beats just as much as any other producer, and I wanted to show how these melodies can stack on top of some drums to create the energy and vibe of the genre that we're working in. So here are the drums that we made. Alright fam, those are the 5 simple steps, the 5 important steps. They're not always simple, especially if you don't know music theory or you don't know how to play keys and guitar in the way that I showed here, although I'm not very good at the guitar, mind you. But for those of you who are interested in learning to build yourself up to be able to do this, this is the perfect type of example. It's simple to understand, but it will take some practice to be able to make it happen as effectively as you would need to make beats like this on a regular basis. Or you could just use loops and samples, and to do that without having copyright issues, check out strategicaudiokits.com. Simple. Alright, enough of that. I thank you so much for watching, and I hope you got something out of this little tutorial, these 5 tips for making J. Cole type beats, if you want to say it, or soulful samples, soulful beats for artists like J. Cole, Kendrick, Joey Badass. The list could go on. If you like and you subscribe, thank you again. It really helps the channel. This is where I sign off and say peace, and I'll see you in the next video. And this is also where I play the final mix, the final master, the final arrangement, just so you can hear the overall production in its final form. See you next time.